Okay. All right, we're waiting for a few people to join in person, so we'll get started in just a minute. Are we good? Okay. All right, my name is Laura Tadeon, and I'm with the Office of Employee Benefits at UT System Administration. So our office manages the insurance, retirement, and wellness programs for the entire university system. And we support the local benefits offices at all of the institutions. Happy to be here to talk about the few changes for annual enrollment 2023-2024. All right, so we'll just go over a few things, just the regular enrollment information, plan updates, some reminders, and then remind you of our resources. Annual enrollment begins July 15th and ends July 31st. You'll be getting an email from our office next week to remind you that it's time to enroll. And you'll have a link and additional information on enrolling online. Any changes you make during annual enrollment will be effective September 1st, unless there's something that requires review by Blue Cross, which will be disability or increases in life insurance, where you'll need to fill out evidence of insurability. And then once they approve that, that would be effective the first of the month following their approval. Too far. Oh, can't go back. Sorry. One sec. Okay, there we go. For our medical plan, there aren't a lot of changes for the medical plan this year. There is a program in UT up in Dallas. I think everyone here probably is located here. So if your address is here, this won't apply to you, but sometimes we have retired employees who move away. So for anyone in the Dallas area who might be on the UT Connect plan, that plan will be ending August 31st, and you'll be automatically enrolled into the UT Select plan September 1st. There is a change to premium rates effective September 1st. If you only cover yourself, your coverage is still free, so that's the good news. If you cover dependents, there is a slight increase. Per month, it's around $20 if you cover either a spouse or children, and if you cover a full family, it's in the around $40 to $43 a month. And we have full rate information. Either if you're in person, we have some handouts. And then if you are online, we'll have those resources available at utbenefits.link/AE. If you're on the UT Care plan, if you're a retiree, those rates will change January 1st, because that plan is on a January through December plan year. The only plan design update on the medical side is the change to the federal limit, which is the out-of-pocket max, which is the most amount you could pay for all of your covered co-payments and deductibles and everything on the medical and prescription drug plan. So if you had a very challenging health year, you could pay up to $9,100 if you're an individual, or up to $18,200 for family. We don't see many people hit that limit because usually, your costs are much lower. But that's a federal limit, so we just meet that limit every year. The other items, the deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, are staying the same as last year. The prescription drug portion of the UT Select plan is not changing. That deductible does reset every September 1st, and that deductible is $200 per person. There can be other drug formulary changes, so sometimes certain drugs will move around on the formulary, might become generic. Then one change we are making is to no longer cover weight loss medications. So the two drugs are Wegovy and Saxenda. They're specifically for weight loss, and those will no longer be covered after August 31st.
Are there any exceptions for that? Like, because I'm diabetic and I'm on Wegovy. Are
There,
there any exceptions for that?
there are some drugs that are also for diabetes. And so when someone has diabetes, that coverage, there's what we call a prior authorization in place. So what Express Scripts will do is go over, they'll do that prior authorization process and see the diagnosis and can continue coverage for that. But if you're specifically affected, you will get information directly from Express Scripts and they'll.
Because I don't go to the first script for my medication.
Okay,
I go to Walmart.
do you mind if we talk about it afterward? But yeah, so that was a good question, but just for personal
Yeah.
health information, if you don't mind, but I'm happy to talk to you after it. We'll get you more information. And then if you have questions, if you're online about that, those medications, please feel free to call our office, the Office of Employee Benefits. Our phone number is on our website, and we're happy to work with you on the plan details there. We do still have part of our plan is, we work with the wellness program. We have a lot of additional offerings through like Hinge Health and Omada, and those services will be continued. There's more information about Living Well on our website, and then I believe is Carla presenting today? Yeah, so Carla is in charge of our wellness programs, and she'll be presenting on our wellness programs more later. Then for our voluntary plans, there aren't a lot of change. Well, really, this is the only change. UT Flex, the healthcare reimbursement maximum amount you can contribute has increased. It will be $3,050, so you can contribute up to that amount for the next plan year. And you can contribute as little as $15 a month, but the healthcare reimbursement account allows you to put money aside pre-tax. So you save you give less to the government and you keep more for yourself. And the healthcare is for reimbursement of all healthcare expenses for you and any of your tax dependents. They don't have to be covered on your plan for you to use the money for reimbursement for things like eyeglasses or orthodontia or things that aren't covered by the medical plan, like co-payments. The dependent care reimbursement amount has stayed the same at $5,000 per family. And it's for daycare expenses. So any of your dependents who need daycare, after school care, if you have an adult dependent who's disabled and on your taxes, you can also use that money for the adult daycare services. The other voluntary coverages do not have premium or plan changes. So we still have the 3 dental plans, 2 vision plans, short and long-term disability, voluntary group term life, and then voluntary AD&D for employees. And if you want to make any changes to the to the life insurance or the disability, if you're adding or increasing, you do have to complete evidence of insurability. I talked a little bit about that earlier. And that's just your health information. You go through kind of a health questionnaire after the end of your enrollment, and then the insurance company reviews it and their actuaries determine if you're a good risk and they can give you the coverage. There are premium brackets on that voluntary life insurance. So as you get older, every 5 years, you get a happy birthday surprise at a little bit of an increase in rate. So I'm about to get another one of those next year. But the coverage rates are based on your age and your salary as of September 1st, and that's locked in. So right now you're doing the right thing. You're here, you're learning about your benefits. You can go online to look at what you're enrolled in now. You won't be able to make any changes until July 15th, but if you want a reminder of what you have, you can look at there. You go into my UT benefits and there's a place where you can print your benefits, or you can just log into view to see what you have. During annual enrollment, so we will send you what we call a kickoff email that will come to your work email. And then if you don't have, for some reason, don't have an email on file with us, we'll send you a letter. But we'll tell you how to log in and where to go and everything, and there should be a link, and you log in to my UT benefits with single sign-on. So just the way you log into your computer. And you'll need to make any changes by July 31st. If you don't want to make any changes, you don't have to do anything. It is always a good idea to go in and make sure everything looks the way you think it should look. If not, you can work with your human resources department to get things corrected. And just make sure you make any changes by July 31st. If you don't do anything, everything will roll over to the next plan year except for UT Flex, which you have to elect every year. And then afterwards, after annual enrollment ends, you do still have a grace period to submit any documentation. So if you added or increased life insurance or disability, then you'll need to complete that evidence of insurability. If you added dependents, we ask for what's called evidence of eligibility. And that's just proving that your dependent is your dependent. Like if it's your child, you would put in a copy of your child's birth certificate. If it's a spouse, a marriage certificate. So you can just put in a copy and upload a copy of that into the system. And you'll get reminders. You'll be sick of reminders. You'll get reminders to do that if you make any of those changes. Then also there's one more thing. If you have outside coverage with, say, a spouse with another group health insurance, you can waive our medical insurance and use the dollars that are contributed called premium sharing to pay for your other voluntary coverage, like your dental and vision coverage. And that's called premium sharing. And to get that, you would waive your medical coverage, and then you upload evidence of waiver. So that would be like a copy of enrollment in your other plan. You'll get new ID cards by September 1st for UT Select Medical if you're enrolled, and any plans you made changes for. So if you added a dental plan, you'll expect a new dental ID card. And then if you have UT Flex healthcare reimbursement and you have a debit card and it has not expired, you can keep that card and it will still be loaded with your money, and they'll get your new money loaded on by September 1st. For our resources, we're in the Office of Employee Benefits. So we're just at utsystem.edu/benefits. Our phone number, emails, everything is there. And then you can reach your HR benefits office at the UT benefits link /HR contacts. That's it for the presentation. Does anyone have questions? That might be from earlier. Oh yeah, those were from her. So let's see. Someone's asking, would the benefits summary for upcoming year be posted online? Yes, so our office is working on getting things posted. You should be getting an annual enrollment newsletter early next week. That will have detailed articles on everything. And that's when our materials will start to be posted on our website. So all of the premium and plan updates and changes and additional information on all of the programs will all be posted by next week. Great question. Anyone else online or in the room? Oh. UT Flex contributions carry over if you do not use them at all. No, so the UT Flex on daycare, the daycare reimbursement account, you have to incur or use all of your expenses by August 31st. You have until November 30th of the next plan year to claim, to submit all of your expenses. On the healthcare side, so for like your eyeglasses and your prescriptions, that you do have a grace period to use that money so you can incur new expenses or, keep paying for doctor visits and things through November 15th of the next year. And then you just need to submit all of those claims or swipe that card through November 30th to use this current plan year. And then it would start to use your new expenses. And then what you don't use from this current year by November 15th and claim by November 30th, you would lose, you would forfeit back into the plan. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about the short-term and long-term disability, like how do we go about doing that?
Sure, yeah, so someone in the room has asked about short and long-term disability. So disability insurance replaces part of your income while you are disabled and not able to work. And the way you do that is you would just enroll. And then when you're out, you submit a claim. And then those plans pay, after you exhaust your sick leave, they will pay 60% of your salary up to the amount they determine, the amount of time they determine you to be disabled. So they work with your doctor to determine your period of disability. And if you're out for a long time, then that would roll over into the long-term disability. There's a lot more details to it, and I'm happy to, we're happy to talk to you about all more information, but that's it in a nutshell. Looking to see about the disability. The short-term disability pays out weekly, unless they know there are certain conditions, they know how long you're going to be out, so they'll just send you one check. The long-term disability pays out monthly. And there are upper limits on the salary that they'll pay out. I don't have those off the top of my head, but I'm happy to look them for you.
So you said we have to be exhausted all of our sick, but that vacation.
Not vacation, just sick leave. So yeah, what a lot of people, I know a lot of people stay with BT for a very long time. So a lot of people with a lot of sick leave don't get short-term disability. They get just the long-term disability because they have so much sick leave that it meets up to I believe it's a 90-day elimination period for the long term. So if you have that much sick leave and you wouldn't mind using it if you got really ill, then there's really no point in having a short-term disability. It would just be kind of, if you had a really, it's all situational. If you had multiple things happen, you could keep exhausting your sick leave, but just what I see usually is most people with a lot of sick leave don't take short-term disability. They just take the long-term disability. I know financial consultants tend to highly recommend long-term disability because, and I feel kind of passionate about disability because I've seen some very young people be totally disabled and you don't expect it to happen, but then they have that payment and it can really help get them through. And something that Blue Cross has told us is they have people who will work with you to help you try to get back to work. And UT has one of the highest return to work rates of any employer in the industry. So people really want to come back, and it might seem like, oh, I can just get paid forever, but no one wants to be disabled. So it really can help you get through a rough spot. So, and I have seen it in action, and It's not very expensive. We get very good rates. We got a lowered rate a couple of years ago, so it's very worth a close look. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the AT Flex, I guess, are you gonna be able to provide or something with exclusions? I've been having trouble using that to the point where one of my providers is, I suppose, not submitting proper documentation, and it's just like a lot of back and forth, and now I have these threats that I'm not gonna be able to.
Okay, so someone in the room is having problems with submitting claims for UT Flex, and sometimes that can happen. I think when you get to that level, it's pretty frustrating, and I understand that. So when you get there, my suggestion is to work with our office directly, and we can usually like take a look or hear what you're saying with you and give you some good tips on getting those things cleared up. And it's usually just like you said, just something not going correctly, but we can just always contact our office directly, and we are happy to help you work through those things. Sometimes it can be really something easy that's just, it's hard to communicate through emails or through customer service. Thank you. Let's see. An error when logging in through the new mobile app. There is I don't have it on me, but we have a UT benefits, my UT benefits support phone number. If you go through, well, I don't know, Simi, could I ask them to contact your office if they're not able to find it on our website? But there's a page on our website that is UT benefits .link/manage, I believe. And on there is my UT benefits support, navigational support phone number, and they should be able to help you with the mobile app. If they're not, please contact the local office or contact our Office of Employee Benefits. And then UT Care rate increases for 2024 will not, so those won't take effect until January 1st. And those won't be announced until around November. So there's an additional enrollment period for UT Care in November. And during that time, we'll be doing more meetings and announcing those items, just kind of like we do now, but it will just be specific to UT Care for retired employees on that plan. And then the short-term to long-term happens at 90 days. Well, the long-term starts at the long-term disability. If you only have that, starts at 90 days. The transition would be handled, if you have both, that transition is handled by Blue Cross, and that they would do that on according to your situation. Yes.
So if you have, and that short term, if you have more hours, that some employees have like a lot of hours, and you have more than 90 days, they get into that 31st or switching to long term,
Yes.
or it should be
Yeah.
apple time.
Well, so the question is, so are you asking, do you exhaust your sick leave before long-term disability?
Correct.
Yes. So you have to exhaust all of your sick leave before you get any disability payments. And they will offset. So if they pay and you had sick leave, they'll take it back from you. But yeah, you just want to make sure you keep all of your paperwork and know your hours and work with because your institution, your group here, your HR group needs to sign off on how many hours the Blue Cross will check to see. But it's still long-term disability is a good idea, even if you have a lot of sick leave, because it could carry you through through retirement age.
So then you're saying, I mean, if I need my short-term disability, I will get my sick leave and I won't get a payment for that period of time?
Right, so if you have short-term disability and you have more sick leave than what you would need to get you into long-term disability, you would never use your short-term disability, and that's why people with more sick leave don't enroll in short-term disability. They would just enroll in the long-term. And you can, if you have it and you've gotten so many hours now that you feel comfortable dropping short-term disability, you can drop short-term disability during annual enrollment. Save yourself a few dollars. Let's see if we have any more or any more questions in the room. Well, I'll let Charles start with, Charles Morris is here from our office and he's presenting on retirement, voluntary retirement mostly. But I will be here for everyone in person. And then we do have people in our office. I'll be back in the office on Monday and we're happy to help you with your questions. And then your HR benefits office is also happy to help with anything you need. So look for that email next week and then you can start to make changes on the 15th, next Saturday. Thank you. All right.
The answer 5.
What's that?
I think so. There you go. Well, I mean, you have to hit the answer 5. And I can take care of it. I'll switch them all over.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Other presentations.
Should be there.
There.
No. So, there we go.
No, we can start sharing again. That's
Well, because I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
no, we can again start sharing.
There you go. Okay.
Oh, so yeah, I get there. I get there. I get there. There we go. All right. Show. Actually, there we go. All right. Thank you for staying for mine. I appreciate it because I'm going to talk a little bit about the teacher retirement system and the UT ORP programs. As Laura said, my name is Charles Mars. I'm the manager of the retirement program at UT. Before I came to UT, I worked at the teacher retirement system for 8 years. So I have 26 years of experience working in public retirement through UT and TRS. And evidently that experience has not helped me with clickers. So as UT employees, you are automatically eligible if you're in a benefits position for a mandatory retirement plan. Most UT employees participate with the teacher retirement system, good 80%. For certain eligible positions, there's also what's called the optional retirement program. Is anyone in here ORP? All right, so we'll go very quickly through ORP then. In addition to the mandatory retirement plans, you are also eligible for a voluntary 457B and or a voluntary 403B plan. We're unusual in that we can offer both of them because as a government agency, we can do a governmental 457B plan, and as public education, we can do an educational 403B plan. Let's talk a little bit about the teacher retirement system. It does play a significant role in most of our retirement planning. The teacher retirement system is what's called a defined benefit plan. Another word for a defined benefit plan is ancient dinosaur. There are very, very few DB plans left. It is a very valuable, rich plan for participants. And by rich, what I mean is it has a very robust income replacement potential for future retirees. That's because your benefit from TRS has nothing to do with the balance in your account. When you get your statements and you see that dollar amount in your account, that number is irrelevant. It will have nothing to do with what you receive. Instead, it is a formula established in state law. So you get 2.3% of the average of your 5 highest salaries for every year you work. And so as an example, if you've worked 10 years of service at age 65, you would get 23% of the average of your 5 highest salaries. If you've worked 20 years, you'll get 46%. 30 will get you 69%. 40, you should have retired 10 years ago. And I can't do any other numbers. I can only do even numbers in my head. So we'll stick with the even numbers. But as a result, that's a lifetime annuity. All eligible employees are automatically enrolled on your first day of employment. You begin having your contributions come out. I'm sure you've seen them. And you vest with TRS after 5 years. And there is some confusion over vesting. The 5-year vesting for TRS is for the money from TRS. Health insurance eligibility for retirees is 10 years of employment with UT. So keep that in mind. 5 years is for the money, 10 years is for the health insurance. And there are death and disability benefits available upon day 1. So if you are on your way to work on your very first day and you get run over by a bus, you could still potentially get a lump sum of twice your annual salary of TRS. If you're an experienced worker and you have 20, 30 years of service with TRS and something happens to you, then your beneficiary could potentially receive a lifetime annuity based on your service. With some personal circumstances. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the teacher retirement system. Once upon a time, back when I worked there was this magic rule for eligibility. It's called the rule of 80. When your years of service and your age added up to any combination of 80, you could retire. There would be no reduction in that formula I showed you first. So if you were 50 with 30 years of service, you could retire. If you were 55 with 25 years of service, you could retire. But unfortunately, we had people living 40, 50, 60 years after retirement based on 20 to 30 years of service. That is very difficult to sustain financially. And so the legislature saw fit to add some additional stipulations. It's always rule of 80, but now there are some age requirements as well. So there are 6 tiers for eligibility, but there are only 3 outcomes. So we group those tiers by their outcome. Tiers 1 and 2 are basically if you started before 2007 and did not refund your service and had at least 5 years by 2014, you will be able to retire under the original rule of 80 magic rule. Or at 65 at 5. If you have at least 5 years, you can always retire at 65. So 65 is the oldest you have to work if you have service to be able to retire. Tiers 1 and 2, basically 5 years prior to 2014, we started before 2007. Tiers 3 and 4 are as if you started after 2007, but before 2014, and you had at least 5 years by 2014, you are eligible rule of 80 at age 60. So it's still rule of 80, but you have to wait at least 60 years old before you can retire. And what happens in those circumstances is if you have to retire before age 60, they'll take that standard service calculation, that standard annuity calculation, and then they'll give you a few percentage points for each year underneath under age 60. I want to say it's 5% per year, but I don't quote me on that. TRS would be more information. Finally, if you started after 2014 or did not have 5 years of service by 2014, meaning refunded your account, then you're going to be rule of 80 at age 62. And the reason why there are 6 tiers and only 3 outcomes is that each tier group is you didn't refund, you did refund. You didn't refund, you did refund. So as a moral rule, don't refund your TRS. If you leave public service, like if you're in a school district and you leave for a few years, with very few exceptions, and there are some exceptions, you generally don't want to refund, because once you refund, you forfeit your tier placement. And then you'll kick up to the next highest tier, or you'll kick up to the latest tier. And if you have any questions, your tier status should be on your annual statement. And you can also call TRS directly. And I stress that last because if you hear anything from me that conflicts with what TRS tells you, they are the rulemaking authority. So you go with what TRS tells you. And there is going to be one more rate increase for your contributions. We are currently paying 8%. This next year, it's going to go to 8.25%. And that's due to legislation back in 2019. These are planned. We knew it was going to happen. So this is hopefully going to be the last one for a while. The interesting thing is that this legislation was also the very first time that the state was actually paying an equal amount to our contribution in years. For many, many decades, the state paid significantly less. Now, the state portion does not go into your personal account. The state match goes into the general trust fund of the teacher retirement system, which funds these lifetime annuities. So the only way for a participant to experience or receive the state portion is if they meet eligibility requirements, they retire, and they receive that lifetime annuity. Because your personal contributions in your account are usually gone within 3 years after you retire. Everything else, the rest of your life is paid for that general trust. So we're going to talk about ORP very briefly, because I don't know if we have any ORP participants here, or if we have any. And we do have a raised hand. I will be more than happy to answer any online questions after I've done the initial slide for the folks who are watching remotely. Thank you. So with the optional retirement program, it is a defined contribution plan, which is the complot to the TRS capital. It is essentially what you have in your account is what you're going to get when you retire. It's an alternative to the teacher retirement system for certain eligible positions, primarily faculty, executive, and professional, being lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, football coaches. Yeah. You have a 90-day election period upon first eligibility. And if you do not make that selection in the first 90 days, you never get ORP offered again anywhere in the state, not just with UT. Once you've been offered ORP and you chose not to accept it, then you are TRS for the remainder of your career. But the benefits of ORP is portable. It has a 1 year and 1 day vesting period, and you can take it with you. And the idea when it was first introduced in the late 60s was because faculty had to move. They had to switch schools to advance their careers. And TRS, they're a great benefit, but they don't play well with other states. Whereas ORP is basically just a 403B plan. So you can take it with you to any other state, and you have that state match through the contributions. But there are no death or disability benefits. And oddly enough, ORP eligibility for health insurance at retirement is based on TRS eligibility for retirement. So the ORP participants basically get treated the same exact way as TRS folks when it comes time to retire. All right, so now we're going to talk about the fun part, your voluntary retirement opportunities. And this is symbolic, of course, because the best thing about these plans is you start small and you build up over time. So both our voluntary plans are very, very similar. They don't have a lot of differences anymore. Once upon a time they did, but the federal government has been revising the statutes, making it more and more similar. And some of the changes that we just introduced, we now have Roth after-tax capabilities in both plans. Previously, it was just in our 403B plan. And I'll talk a little bit about Roth in my next slide or two. You can defer your vacation payouts. If you've been working here a long time, when you leave and you're eligible for a lump sum vacation of that unused leave, you can put it into these plans. And that makes sense because they don't tell you vacation isn't taxed the same as earned income. Vacation is treated like lottery money. It's called ordinary income, and the tax rate is usually in the 30% range. So you can defer up to, if you're over 50, $60,000 into these two plans in any given tax year, at least for this current year. and void that taxation immediately. And then you can parse those contributions out over a period of time in the next tax year to lower, or in some cases, almost negate the tax hit entirely, depending on how long you spread it out, or roll it into another qualified plan. We also introduced what's called the qualified birth and adoption withdrawal. You can take up to $5,000 if you've had a birth or adoption in the past 12 calendar months. And we've also introduced in-service withdrawals for the DCP plan. We already had it at 59.5 for a PSA, but for both plans now, you can actually continue to contribute to the plan as an employee while taking money out if you're 59.5. And I present my friend the dog. So these are features that have always been there. You can always contribute to these plans. They are not subject to open enrollment. We encourage people to look at open enrollment because of convenience, but you can start contributions, you can change contributions, you can change vendors at any time. You can contribute to one plan or both plans at the same time. The minimum contribution is $15 a month. The maximum for this year is $22,500 if you're under 50. It's $30,000 if you're over 50 per plan. And again, it's not either or. You can do both plans. So if you are highly comped or you have other income sources, you can actually shelter up to $60,000 if you're over 50. At least this year. Next year, the rent's probably going to go up again. And the limits apply to both Roth and traditional. So Roth is not a separate account in our plan. This is not a Roth IRA. This is a 403B plan or a 457 plan that has a Roth feature. We also have loans and hardships available, but I would encourage you to exhaust other options before you tap into retirement, because it's your retirement. If you tap it now, it's not going to be there when you retire. So let's talk a little bit about Roth and traditional. Does everyone in this room know what Roth is? See nods. I see. Okay. So traditionally, these types of plans allowed you to put your money in to the account to be invested before you pay taxes on it. It was tax deferred. And so it was a way for you to lower your immediate taxable income. And a lot of folks use it just for that purpose. They want to lower their taxable income. Now, because ideally in the future, when you do retire, you're going to have a reduction in your taxable income. So at that point, you can start doing your distributions in a lower tax environment. But not that long ago, the IRS also introduced, or the Congress introduced, Roth. Roth allows you to put your contributions in after you've already paid taxes. And as long as the account is open at least 5 years and you don't touch it until you're 59.5, everything that pays out is tax-free. So as an advantage of that, say you are a 24-year-old brand new employee and you are looking forward to a long career ahead of you. You start putting $15 a month into your Roth account. And every time you get a raise, you put half of your raise into that Roth account so you don't miss it. Because the important part of these plans is don't put something in you're going to miss. The more you miss it, the more you're going to obsess about it, the more you're going to want to do it on hardship. Over the course of your career, you may develop a good and healthy 6-digit balance of completely tax-free dollars. And over a long career, a significant portion of that balance is going to be completely tax-free. Or excuse me, earnings and interest. So you may have 40% interest in your account after a 30-year career, because the more it compounds, that compounding is what builds your wealth. So that's why Roth is very advantageous, especially for folks who have a longer career ahead of them. But even if you're toward the end of your career, you can still build a tax-free balance for yourself, because the IRS just announced the rules that there is no more required minimum distributions after retirement from a Roth account. With these types of plans, the IRS doesn't let you shelter the money forever. You're going to hit an age, right now, I believe it's 72. It's going to eventually go up to 73 in a decade or so, or 75 in a decade or so. But there comes a point where the IRS requires you to start taking distributions. They're not going to let you put the taxes on forever. However, this is all non-taxable money. There's no advantage to the IRS to require that requirement distribution. So they finally memorialized that law. So RMDs for the Roth products are going to go away. All right, so these are just some bullet points that I've learned over the years that I want to share. First off, allocation versus providers. And I'm very pleased that this is not as common in the Valley, where you'll have one person splitting $20 contributions per month among 5 different companies, which is the number of companies we have. Don't do that. It doesn't do you any good. With our plan, you want to pick one company and then work with that company to help you invest that money. The companies are not the basket. If you're looking at the eggs all in one basket, the company is not the basket. The products with that the company offers, the investment products, mutual funds that the company offers, those are your baskets. And they have lots of baskets available for you. These plans work best if you start and then you don't look at it. Don't look at your account balances, especially when we're in a bear market. That's the worst thing you can do, because when you look and you see that your balances just dropped 40%, you're going to make an emotional decision, or you're going to say some very colorful metaphors. You're going to express some frustration. But the thing is that these are long-term plans. They're long-term savings. So unless you're right at retirement, in which case you want to have a conversation with your financial representative. But if you're not at retirement, you're a few years away, just step back, because historically speaking, when the market corrects very quickly. And so you may have a sudden drop in value, but the thing is that it's value. You're not losing shares. You're losing the value in those shares. The shares are still there until you sell. So once you sell, once you change vendors, once you make that emotional decision, you have basically made those losses permanent. Whereas if you just step back, take a deep breath, let the market restore itself as it has historically done. That's not a promise of the future, but historically, you just step back, then eventually those values restore in most circumstances. And if there's going to be an exception to that, that's when you have a conversation with financial rep. And speaking of financial reps, take advantage of them. One of the benefits of the UT plan is that we contract and demand a lot from our companies because we are a big employer. There is power behind size, and the university is a 800-pound gorilla. There are larger out there, but we are large enough that the Office of Employee Benefits manages the plan for all UT institutions across the state, and we use that to try and negotiate the cheapest expense ratios for our plans. We've used it to make sure there are no annual fees, no sales fees, no over fees at all. The only expenses are what you invest in through the expense ratio of your individual funds. And if you're using active management, if you hired someone basically to manage your investments for you, you're going to pay a very small commission, just a tiny fraction of the balance that you get. And before you start these plans, you want to have an emergency fund. You want to have at least 3 months of net salary in a savings account that is accessible. The reason I say that is that these plans aren't free. You are paying for them through those expense ratios in the mutual funds. It's a very, very small fee, very small, but they're not free. So when you put money into a plan and then you immediately have to pull it out for a hardship, then basically you paid the company for nothing. And that's not beneficial to you, because it costs money for these companies to record keep the money. They have to do the tax reporting when you do your distributions, and there is expense there, and they have to be able to make a reasonable profit from it. And we've browbeat them to such a low profit margin that they're one of the cheapest products you're going to find, but there is an expense there. You need to be aware of that when you start participating. Set it up, forget about it, pretend it's not there. Just make sure that you start low enough that you're not going to miss that money. Speaking of, here are our 5 companies. We work with Fidelity Investments, Voya Financial, which used to be called ING, TIAA, which used to be called Theocrat, Lincoln Financial, And then Corbridge, which was AIG Retirement, which was Ballot, which was AIG. And all 5 of them should be here today. We also have on the UT website, which you can actually get through Laura's links, the benefits page links to all the programs that OAB has. We have a downloadable spreadsheet with every mutual fund we have. And I don't have a slide on mutual funds, but just as a background, does everyone know what a mutual fund is? I see one nod, I see one shake, I see one person on the phone thinking really hard about their phone. Yeah, I got it. A mutual fund, we don't have direct stock purchases, so you can't go through our 403B plan and buy shares of Coke or IBM. Instead, we have what are called mutual funds. A mutual fund allows you to put $15 in a month and pull that $15 a month with a few 100,000 of your close friends to buy a share of Coke or IBM in that mutual fund. That's why it's mutual. It's a pooling of multiple contributions to be able to buy individual stocks. And you'll have a mutual fund manager who is in charge of investing that pool of funds. And the mutual funds themselves vary by style. So you'll have a mutual fund that specializes in large cap, meaning large capital companies like IBM or Coke or Google. You'll have small cap, the smaller companies. You'll have real estate mutual funds. So these companies have representatives who can help you pick which mutual funds you want to invest in. You can enroll anytime through My Retirement Manager. If you've never used My Retirement Manager, you will have to establish a security profile. But once you've established a security profile, you can then use the same single sign-on link as you do for your health insurance. There is a link on the Marketplace that will take you to your Retirement Manager once you've established that security profile. Retirement Manager is how you tell your payroll office how much to pull from your check, what plan, what tax status, where to send it. And then you contact the company directly to tell them what to do with that money, or to meet with someone to help you, guide you on what to do with that money, and to make sure they have a beneficiary. Our plan documents do not specify what to do when you die. So it benefits everyone to make sure you have a beneficiary involved, not just for these plans, but for all your plans. Teacher retirement, your life insurance, everything. Make sure you have a beneficiary involved. These are links to our websites. You can also Google UT Retirement. If it takes you to Tennessee, just go to the next link down, including My Retirement Manager. And here is the direct contact for the retirement programs. This email will take you to we'll go to the entire retirement program, all 2 of us. We don't have 1-800 number because there's only 2 of us, so you can call us directly if you need. Otherwise, that's it. So let me see if we have any Q&A here. All right, can we get a copy of the presentation? I will defer to the local benefits office. And okay, let me get this one and then I'll grab here. I'm interested in taking charge of growing my own retirement investments using a self-directed Roth IRA. Which of the approved preventive? Okay, so we do not offer a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is not an employer plan. It is a product that you basically buy off the street from your local bank. We have a 403B or a 457 plan that allows you to make Roth contributions. And you can start those through the Retirement Manager system at any time. And you can work with any of our 5 providers at any time to start that. So it may be a semantics, but you can make Roth contributions, but it's through one of our qualified plans. So any one of the 5 providers that I just listed before. So you had a question.
Oh, I just wanted to see the previous slide of the website.
Let me see if I can do that. Evidently not. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, IT support would like to answer this question live. IT support would like to answer this question live. I do not know what that means. That's answer. Okay. So I'm gonna defer that to our local benefits office. If you do have any questions, I would always encourage folks to go through your local benefits office first, because one, you have a great team here down in the valley for all of the three RGV campuses. But also, my job at Austin is to support your local benefits office to support you. That doesn't mean you can't call me. It doesn't mean you can't email me. I love talking to people. It's why I do this, why I've been doing it for so long. But I would encourage you to contact your local benefits office first, because if they don't know the answer, by asking, they will know the answer the next time it comes up. So it helps them in helping you. And let's see. Yes, ma'am.
You said to take advantage of the financial providers or representatives that we have. So is that through our benefits or is that?
Well, they're actually out there.
Oh, okay.
They're all here. So all those 5 campuses are there. And Kansas will also often have either benefit fairs or lunch and learns. You can also contact them directly on this website right here. Either through the general webpage or what have you. We have a link called Approved Providers that has direct contact information, phone numbers, and UT specific microsites. So it's a website designed for UT employees with that provider that allows you, with most of the providers, to actually enroll online on their side as well. So I mentioned that you have to contact the provider. Well, you can do that online. You can do the entire process online if you want. But if you actually want to speak to someone, I would encourage you to go out while they're here. And at any other time, you can download an Excel spreadsheet of every approved agent. If they're not on that list, then chances are they're not approved. Our approved agents have to agree to what's called a sales solicitation agreement. You should never receive a direct sales solicitation from an approved agent. If you get an email out of the blue of someone you don't work with, I mean, if you're already working, say, with Tia and you get an email from Tia, that's a customer communication. But if you receive an email from someone who says they represent this company that you don't currently work with, that's a violation of our SSA agreement. So don't answer, don't respond. But you can download that sheet of approved agents, or again, you can go out and talk to them in person right now. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me again the rule of 80?
The rule of 80 is years of service plus age, adding up to 80. Plus, depending on your tier, age requirements. So if you started after 2014, your tier is going to be either 5 or 6, meaning rule of 80 plus age 62. Do I need to go back to that?
Would you please?
I will, because it's complicated. Got too excited with my transitions there. So again, with the DRS tiers, there's 6 tiers because there's for people who never refunded and people who have refunded. That's the difference between the 6 tiers. But really what comes down to is prior to 2007, with 5 years by 2014, between 2007 and 2014, with 5 years by 2014, which is the theme, after 2014, or if you refunded and came back after 2014. So it's rule of 80, age 60, rule of 80, age 62.
The previous slide, you had the percentage.
I did.
And then, but when you were talking about this, the 2.3 annual, and when you came to this other slide, you mentioned about that tier.
Dings. Yeah, so this right here is what's called the standard annuity calculation, meaning that there's no reduction for leaving a part of it to your spouse. When you can actually leave your annuity to your spouse if you wanted to. You make that when you retire, and it causes a reduction. But for the standard annuity, this is it. However, if you do not meet full eligibility requirements, but you're over 55, you can retire, but there is a penalty. So they'll take the percentage from your standard annuity calculation. Was that your
If you're
question?
not, if you're not over 55, even if you meet, if you're in tier like 1 or 2.
If you're tier 1 or 2, you're rule of 80.
Right, so the 55 age doesn't.
I'm gonna be 55 at 30 years of service.
Right,
So, yeah, I'm tier 2 personally. So there's not gonna be a penalty for my retirement because I'm gonna meet the rule of 80.
okay, that's what I wanted to.
Exactly. But if you don't meet the, or even if you meet the rule of 80, but you don't have these additional age stipulations, that's where the dings come. That's where they can get you. Yes, ma'am.
What happens if you die before you're retired? What happens to you?
You have death benefits. And so depending on how many years of service you have, your beneficiaries get to choose the benefit. So if you have a spouse, for instance, because once upon a time, you could take an annuity and actually leave it to a child. And so that child could conceivably receive your annuity for another 60 or 70 years. There were also cases where men or women would marry someone who was significantly younger than they were. And so that would extend the annuity. So PRS did put some age requirements and restrictions on who can receive what. But if you have a spouse and something happens to you and you have more than 5 years, then that spouse will have the option of choosing a lifetime annuity or choosing a set term annuity or choosing a lump sum equal up to twice your annual salary. Very good question.
Yeah, let's see, I think I see one here. No, still have no idea what that's supposed to be.
And I think we may be running out of time. I know Blue Cross Blue Shield is here to give a presentation. So do we have any other questions to wrap up? And I'm also going to be out there at the table. You're more than welcome to come by anytime. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah.